Is Tesla truly being left behind by BYD? That's the alarming message CNBC just dropped in their latest electric car video. They want you to believe that BYD is the new king, that Tesla's reign is over. But behind the headlines and selective data, a different story may be unfolding. We're pulling back the curtain on their misleading claims, blatant errors, and the anti-Tesla bias that's conveniently ignoring reality. Buckle up, because today we're exposing the truth. Tesla isn't just competing, it's dominating, and the future of America's fight against China's tech dominance depends on it. Here's what you need to know. CNBC just published a video called "All the Ways BYD is Leaving Tesla in the Dust." However, it's riddled with omissions, rookie mistakes, and outright blunders, pushing a narrative that undermines America's technological future. The video starts off with CNBC citing a claim from BYD that it can charge its vehicle almost as fast as a gas car. That's a lot of ifs and maybes, as they tout BYD's 250 miles of range within 5 minutes of charging, but without giving any further details. Then CNBC quickly diverts topics to how BYD's revenue was reported at $107 billion, 9% more than Tesla's, as if that matters, strangely leaving out anything related to profitability. Tesla in fact earned $7.1 billion of net income in 2024, while BYD made $5.5 billion. And while Tesla did slightly outsell BYD for the full year in terms of battery electric vehicles, keeping its title as number one in the world, BYD on the other hand has an entire other business line selling an additional 2.5 million hybrid vehicles, totaling more than double the number of cars that Tesla sold, and yet Tesla still made more money. The company commands much higher margins on the vehicles that it sells. This is an important point which we'll come back to. But CNBC circles back to the 250 miles of range in 5 minutes charging rate claim, and even admits that they spoke to researchers who said that this new announcement from BYD may not be as revolutionary as it sounds. CNBC points out that Tesla's Model Y charges at a maximum rate of 250 kilowatts of power, where it can return 169 miles in 15 minutes. They say BYD can do 248 miles in a third the time, but conveniently leaving out a few things, like the amount of power required for BYD's vehicles, because BYD needs a 1 megawatt charger to achieve this. And they don't specify if they're using the mileage standard in China, CLTC, which is much more favorable than the US's EPA rating, meaning that 250 miles in China may only translate to 190 to 200 miles in the US. CNBC says that BYD has outdone Tesla here with this achievement. However, BYD's achievement isn't even in the market yet. They have no vehicles that support this and also no chargers. On the other hand, Tesla is currently deploying, and has been for 2 years, 1.2 megawatt chargers for its Tesla semi-trucks, and so this isn't something that Tesla can't do. Interestingly, their video acknowledges that 22% of chargers in the US can get as high as 350 kilowatts, including non-Tesla chargers. But the car itself needs to be capable of accepting this charge, which CNBC says is what BYD's forthcoming platform is. If true, this means that none of BYD's current cars can accept this charging rate, and they're only planning to build 4,000 new chargers in the future. So they are in fact behind Tesla in this sense. In fact, Tesla's Cybertruck can already take advantage of these high-powered charging stations, especially at Tesla V4 stations, since Cybertruck has an 800-volt architecture. Now, about halfway through the video, CNBC actually starts casting doubt on BYD's claims, which goes against the whole purpose of their video. They try to explain how charging works, using a perfect bell curve, incorrectly saying that the vehicle charges at trickle speeds up until the 10 or 20% mark. Then it speeds up from 20% to 80%, and at some point in there reaches the fastest speed the charger can provide. But this is not really the case. If anything, the charging rate is heavily skewed, with the fastest charging rate occurring roughly between the 5 and 30% mark, and then it begins to slow as the battery fills up. BYD hasn't given any details related to their announcement, and so their ultra-fast charging number may only occur for a short period of time at the peak charging rate with ideal conditions. There's also no real apples-to-apples comparison with Tesla right now. CNBC is comparing a future BYD vehicle to Tesla's existing Model Y, but the Model Y is on a 400-volt platform. The Cybertruck, on the other hand, with the 800-volt platform, could take advantage of the higher power, but it's a large, heavy truck, so adding, say, 100 miles of range in 5 minutes may be even more impressive than adding 200 miles of range on a tiny BYD compact car. Now, CNBC says you need expensive cooling systems to mitigate overheating, along with expensive battery chemistries, otherwise the car could catch fire. In BYD's defense, actually, they're using the cheapest mass-produced car batteries on the planet, which are lithium iron phosphate chemistries that have extremely low risk of fire. BYD has even posted videos poking holes in their blade battery with a sharp nail to try and achieve thermal runaway, but these types of batteries are quite stable. And Tesla actually uses BYD's blade batteries in its own vehicles in China. As for cooling equipment, all of Tesla's charging stations have always been liquid cooled, so this isn't some expensive dream. Tesla's new V4 chargers optimize this even further by immersing the conductive cables in the cooling liquid rather than having the coolant tube simply next to the cables in order to achieve this 1 megawatt charging. It should also be noted that this presentation slide is from 2022, referencing the rollout of Tesla's new V4 chargers, which the Cybertruck, being on the 800-volt architecture, and Semi with the 1000-volt architecture, can take advantage of. The Model Y is already mass-produced with the 400-volt architecture which won't change, but Tesla's future models, including the Cybertruck and Semi, will be able to take advantage of these higher charging rates. It should be noted that in 2022, Tesla was lauded for having beaten Chinese rivals to the 1 megawatt charging punch. CNBC seems to have forgotten this. Semi currently has 1.2 megawatt charging, Cybertruck at 500 kilowatts, each with Tesla's V4 superchargers, which have been rolling out since 2023 and can support various types of power cabinets with increasing levels of power that Tesla pairs with the charging station. The semi-truck stations would simply be backed by more power. While now in 2025, CNBC is congratulating BYD on having discovered that they plan on achieving 1 megawatt charging in the future with future cars and with future charging stations, and thus somehow leaving Tesla in the dust. CNBC experts also state that in order to deploy such chargers, you need a lot of money, and the charging infrastructure needs to be available even before the vehicles are rolled out. This is wrong. Addressing the second part first, Tesla's Cybertruck can charge at any of Tesla's charging stations, at any charging station for that matter. It simply won't be able to take advantage of extremely fast speeds unless it comes across a 500 kilowatt charger. In terms of money, sure it's expensive, but not for BYD or Tesla, which have deep pockets, and it's part of the service that they already provide. It's to their advantage to constantly roll out chargers because they're profitable. If anything, Tesla's V4 chargers may actually be significantly cheaper to roll out than their V3 chargers, despite being more powerful, as they use thinner wires thanks to better cooling, therefore less copper, and they continue to optimize their prefabricated chargers and cabinets. Now, this isn't to say that BYD isn't a fast-moving and fierce competitor, but CNBC, an American company, spreading essentially falsehoods as to how much better the Chinese car makers are than Tesla, is simply doing a disservice, as Tesla is the US's only chance to actually compete with the Chinese at a global scale. Other global automakers who have not gone all in on EVs, like Tesla and like the Chinese have, may fall by the wayside. There is a very real and massive concern that cheap Chinese EVs, such as those from BYD, will crush automakers worldwide as they begin to export globally. However, thus far, BYD's cars are basically banned from being sold in high volumes in the US, Canada, the EU, India, etc., due to massive tariffs up to 100% plus. Interestingly, while the tariffs affect Tesla, they already have an advantage with a localized gigafactory on 3 major continents or 3 major car markets, something that Elon Musk has been a proponent of for many years. But also BYD doesn't have this yet. And so to bypass the tariffs, CNBC predicts a frightening US-made BYD vehicle. But with all the tariffs and such coming from the US administration, this is exactly what Trump wants. Foreign companies to make large investments in building factories in the US, hire American workers, and use localized resources, and there are many indirect supporting businesses that get created because of that, which also propels the US economy. For one thing, BYD may have some trouble doing this at first, since their parts would mainly be imported from China and get hit by large tariffs, and they would need to find the talent to run their factories. Tesla set up shop early on in China and leveraged its US factory to supply parts that were not yet being made in China. But interestingly, a scary US-based BYD, which by the way already exists at a small scale as they already build a handful of electric trucks in the US, may not have the same cost advantages that they have in China. A study by Germany's Kiel Institute suggests that BYD received $3.7 billion in direct subsidies from the Chinese government from 2018 to 2022 to help them dominate in EVs. And last year, in 2024, BYD disclosed that $1.43 billion of its aforementioned $5.5 billion in net income came from direct government subsidies, a 125% jump from $636 million in 2023. Now, Tesla has received some benefits in both the US and China as well, but not to the extent of BYD, especially from the Chinese government. In the US, the government offers up to $7,500 in tax credits for individuals who buy qualifying electric vehicles, and they also have rebates for producing batteries and sourcing critical materials and minerals and battery components domestically, but any company can take advantage of this. Beyond that, Tesla does make money with regulatory credits. However, this money comes from other automakers and not from the government. In China, qualifying NEVs, or new energy vehicles, which includes hybrids, again, more than half of BYD's sales were hybrids, get tax credits as well, including a 10% tax exemption, but also infrastructure rebates, R&D, government procurement rebates, showing how the Chinese government has poured billions into supporting its own homegrown EV sector. If BYD sets up shop in the US, they may see a steep increase in costs and far fewer subsidies. The cost of building a factory, such as the new one BYD just built in Thailand, could increase as land costs are higher and labor costs may be up to 5 to 10 times more in the US than in China. They'd face huge import tariffs to start on bringing components such as batteries into the US, while even setting up domestic supply chain that may cost 20 to 30% more in the US, as suggested by CATL's planned US plans. There's also an additional overhead for operating factories. US electricity prices are roughly twice that of China's, and there's also increased regulatory compliance, which could run the Chinese car company $1,000 to $2,000 extra per car. Even an ultra-cheap $9,000 BYD Seagull in China could be more than double the price if manufactured in the US based on all of these factors. Tesla has the advantage of already operating profitably and domestically inside the world's major auto markets. And keep in mind that BYD operates on fairly thin margins. A 10% increase in costs could eat away all of their profits if they don't have pricing power. When Tesla started the price war in China a few years back, even though Tesla's cars are significantly more expensive, in some cases double, maybe triple the price of BYD's cars, it still put pressure on BYD to cut prices and costs, suggesting that BYD has very little pricing power, and showed how powerful Tesla's product offerings are even in China. BYD's cars appear to be commodities with little to no differentiation. Yet CNBC says that BYD is moving from low cost to innovation, releasing new features and models every few weeks and months. Although planning to copy what Tesla has done for 3 years now doesn't sound like innovation, and it's not possible to release a new model within weeks or months. But for instance, BYD has come out with a parallel parking party trick to parallel park into any tight space by rotating the back wheels in opposite directions while applying the brakes to one front wheel and rotating the other forward slowly. This likely isn't too good for the tires, but it is still a cool trick, although many vehicles, including Tesla's, now park themselves without any user intervention. It also may not be a good idea to box in the car in front and behind you when squeezing into a tight spot. Furthermore, BYD has released a Tesla FSD competitor called God's Eye, which US-based media has already fallen in love with, despite perhaps never even using the software. BYD has various tiers of God's Eye, including higher tiers that use LiDAR, but its C tier is supposed to be vision only, which would be the closest equivalent to Tesla's FSD. However, it currently is only limited to highways at highway speeds, with city driving coming in the future, which doesn't make it at all comparable to Tesla's FSD, which has high integration of end-to-end features and can drive on any type of road. While BYD is adding these features and trying to expand to more premium markets to gain some pricing power, the rest of the market doesn't remain stagnant. Tesla, meanwhile, has refreshed its Model 3 and Model Y, pulling out costs, and Elon Musk has said many times that later this year, Tesla remains on track to release even cheaper models using their existing production lines. This would push further into BYD's low-cost territory, because the two companies are still at fairly opposite ends of the market in terms of their pricing. And next year, Tesla aims to begin rolling out low-cost cybercabs, albeit at Giga Texas. But this is a new paradigm in both manufacturing, to lower costs and build one every 5 seconds, and also in the way they operate, completely autonomously. In 5 years from now, CNBC will congratulate BYD on achieving this new manufacturing method and beating Tesla to the punch. And so China is indeed coming for global domination with its cheaper EVs. But this has put all countries with major car brands on the defensive, increasing tariffs on the country that has had very strict rules for foreign companies operating within its borders. Many tech companies and products are banned inside China, and even legacy car companies have had to partner with Chinese firms to even do business in China. Chinese EV exports from BYD into the US or Europe would indeed cause major damage to legacy automakers. However, if BYD is forced to build domestically, it could slow them down, but eventually create a strong local competitor, but one that would have a much higher cost structure than its purely Chinese counterpart. The media, including CNBC, is for some reason very quick to tout what BYD is doing and completely discount and discredit American companies such as Tesla. They've just said in their latest YouTube video that BYD has solved range anxiety, making it seem like it's completely over for Tesla. However, upon further investigation, BYD has solved nothing for CNBC's audience, especially since YouTube is banned in China. But BYD's future build-out will occur solely in China, and currently they have no concrete plans for building anything in the United States, which means that Tesla, which currently operates freely in major car markets worldwide, may in fact be the one leaving BYD in the dust. So do you think that Tesla has what it takes to take on BYD? And why is it that US media doesn't support its own home-based companies? Visit our new website, themarketisopen.com. Please hit the like button and subscribe. We would really appreciate that. And a huge shout out to all of our patrons that help to support our channel. Your support helps us to continue to make great content. Thank you guys so much for watching.